This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Pro-government protests in Addis Ababa as some Western countries ask their nationals to leave as soon as they can. 3 Chinese astronauts carry out their first spacewalk outside the country's space station as part of the Shenzhou 13 mission. And Kenyans Perez Chepchirchir and Albert Korir win the New York Marathon. Hello and a warm welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. In your top story this hour, thousands of Ethiopians gathered in the capital, Addis Ababa, on Sunday in support of the government. They denounced rebel group TPLF, who have been threatening to take the capital and oust the government. Earlier, countries including the United States, Denmark and Italy asked their personnel in Ethiopia to evacuate the country as an armed conflict and civil unrest continue. Meanwhile, residents in Addis Ababa have expressed their readiness to protect their country from internal and external forces.
I stand with my country. I will never give up my country. That is what I promised for myself today. I believe that all people should unite and pass this cruel time together.
Today we have shown them that Addis Ababa is not under siege and nothing happened on the city. The young generation should avoid the fake news that could damage our moral fabric.
Well, now for the latest on the Sierra Leone fuel tanker tragedy. Authorities say at least 100 people have died and another 100 are nursing injuries in various hospitals. Some relatives have been waiting outside hospitals for updates. Hospitals are getting overwhelmed as medics are appealing for supplies like medicine to treat patients. Earlier, we spoke to Eric Kawa, a journalist there. Here's what he had to say.
The figures keep fluctuating, they keep rising in, out. We went to the scene and we saw rubble, we saw a lot of things that were affected, and also met with family members and other eyewitnesses who shared their experiences with us. So the situation is devastating, and Sierra Leoneans are still trying to grapple with the situation and to recover from those wounds so far. The doctors are calling for urgent need. They're in need of many medications in order to be able to treat the people who actually got injured during the incident. So many hospitals across the country have admitted individuals who actually suffered from this incident. Right now is getting a lot more of these medications, and that also happened as a result of the National Petroleum a company that donated some drugs yesterday to some individuals at the hospital. So the doctors are now appealing for more aid, and parents and relatives are also at different hospitals to be sure that they identify their loved ones. But it has been quite challenging because the extent to which some people got damaged, they were beyond recognition.
Iraq's Prime Minister has appeared on television to confirm he survived an apparent assassination attempt. Mustafa al-Kadhimi called the attack an act of treason. A small drone packed with explosives targeted his residence in Baghdad early on Sunday. The Prime Minister escaped unharmed, but several of his security guards were reportedly hurt. No group has yet claimed responsibility, but this does come just a few days after some protests turned violent, with demonstrators angry over last month's elections. Countries, including the United States, Iran and Saudi Arabia, have condemned the attack. Our correspondent Fu Xinri has more from Baghdad.
According to Iraqi media outlet, at about 3 o'clock in this morning, local time, a booby-trapped drone attacked the residence of Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa Kadhimi in Green Zone, Baghdad. But the attempt failed, and Iraqi security forces announced that Kadhimi was in good health. And at the same time, Kadhimi published a tweet that he was fine, and Iraqi security forces will be able to protect the safety of Iraqi people. He will stand up for his rights and the law. And Kadhimi also called on everyone to keep calm and constrained. According to the information from Iraqi security forces, Baghdad has entered emergency status, and the whole green zone has been shut down with additional guarding forces present. And there is also a video clip, I think that was shot on the phone by a local resident, that showed a series of gunshots after the incident. But the green zone is quiet now without any unusual signs. And it was believed that the Iraqi security forces are carrying out investigation on whoever conducted this failed assassination attempt.
ECOWAS heads of state are currently holding an extraordinary summit in Accra, Ghana, to discuss developments in Guinea and Mali. The West African bloc hopes to secure a return to democracy in both countries. Meanwhile, in Conakry and Bamako, political and civil society actors have expressed their expectations and concerns ahead of the summit. Our reporter Desiree Canon tells us more.
The Malian and Guinean military junta must submit today to ECOWAS a transitional timetable, the admissibility of which must be examined. But in the event of rejection, stricter penalties could be considered. In Conakry, this situation has given rise to feelings of fear and hope within the Guinean political class.
La première chose que nous avions nous reproché à la CEDEAO, c'était de...
The first thing we reproached ECOWAS for was wanting to impose an agenda on the Guinean transition authorities. We rather want ECOWAS to come and listen to the Guineans as a whole. That is our first expectation. We think that ECOWAS could have used its first mission here in Conakry to meet first the political parties, civil society and economic actors of the country. But this was not done. But we got the impression that for the regional bloc, the members of the CNRD are the only actors in the current crisis, which is why it wants to impose sanctions and a transition timetable. In my opinion, this is not the appropriate method. In such circumstances, we simply want ECOWAS to do a pedagogical and listening job to understand the origin and ramifications of the current crisis in order to propose adequate solutions.
Our expectations are simple. ECOWAS must stand by Guinea to accompany it in its choice of transition. ECOWAS and Guinea must work together so that we can get out of this situation that we did not want.
On the Mali side, the tension between the countries...
Well, let's bring you some exciting news now. Shenzhou 13 taikonauts, or Chinese astronauts, are conducting their first spacewalk some 3 weeks after they set off for China's space station. Mission Commander Zhai Zhigang was the first to emerge from the capsule, and he said he felt pretty good. He was followed by Wang Yaping, who is China's first female astronaut to conduct a spacewalk. They've been installing parts to the robotic arm of the space station and testing mutual rescue operations from outside the station. Now we are looking at live visuals showing us exactly what is happening on that spacewalk. Taikonauts conduct these extra vehicular activities, and as we can see there, Commander Zhai talking about this being an extraordinary experience. This is what he said apparently as he stepped onto that, starting that spacewalk. The Shenzhou 13 crew members are conducting what is being termed as their first extravehicular activity and will have lasted for a total of about 6 hours by the time they finish. Wang Yaping, rather historically, has become China's first female astronaut to do a spacewalk. Other activities that have been taking place include their first emergency evacuation drill in space. Now that included escaping to the Shenzhou 13 return capsule during a simulation of the space station's core module losing pressure. The 3 astronauts have been in space for over 20 days on board China's newest space station. And as mentioned earlier, veteran taikonaut Zhai Zhigang was the first to begin this spacewalk. He is 55 years old and joined the China National Space Administration's astronaut program in 1996 and was chosen for the first group of Chinese astronauts in 1998. Zhai commanded the Shenzhou 7 space mission in 2008, and that's when he became the first Chinese to conduct a spacewalk. Wang Yaping, the only woman on the team, is 41 years old and was an elite pilot in the Chinese Air Force and began her space career in 2010 as the first woman recruited by the Astronauts Corps of the People's Liberation Army. And now, of course, the first woman to board the Tiangong space station. She has been in the spotlight before, particularly in 2013, when she joined the Shenzhou 10 mission. The third member of this team is Ye Guangfu, also 41 and a former Air Force pilot. Ye was the first Chinese to take part in a cave training organized by the European Space Station. Ye Guangfu stays inside the space station, not participating in the spacewalk, as he is monitoring the operation and offering a great deal of support. Well, the Shenzhou 13 astronauts are wearing what is being referred to as a very advanced new spacesuit for this very first extravehicular activities. The main colors are red and yellow for the Chinese flag and space blue. It's understood that these suits are being worn for the first time. The chief designer has said that they are optimized to better fit these astronauts in these particularly interesting and, of course, rather challenging conditions. Well, China's space program has achieved a number of key milestones recently, including landing a rover on Mars and sending probes to the moon. We understand that the space agency is planning a total of 11 missions to the space station through to the end of next year. And that will, of course, be fueling China's ambitious space program. And we know that Chinese space authorities have said they are open to foreign collaboration on their space station. A historic event indeed, particularly as Wang becomes the first female taikonaut to conduct these extravehicular activities. Well, as we've seen there, this is the first time since they entered the space station, the core module Tianhe, on October 16, and this crew of the Shenzhou 13 undertaking a very important part of their mission. You are watching Africa Live. Stay with us. After this short break, we'll be right back. Let's start in Nigeria now, where almost a week after a 21-story building collapsed in the commercial city of Lagos, rescuers are still digging through rubble in search of survivors. Over 40 people have now been confirmed dead from the accident, including the owner of the property. Some are still searching for their missing relatives. CGTN's Deji Bademosi has this update on the story.
Dorcas Ohen has been hanging around the collapsed building site for days now, hoping to set eyes on her son, who had been working in the building when it came down. She traveled over 700 kilometers from her remote village in Nigeria's north-central Benue state to get here. The boy in the middle of this picture is her son David, and since the building collapsed, nothing has been heard from him.
She says she wants to see the body of her son and she wants to take it home.
David's relative, Fidelis, who has accompanied the mother on the trip, says it's been heartbreaking for the family.
My own problem is, for me, let me just see his corpse to be confirmed that, yeah, this is where he is. Then whenever they release him to me, I can come over and pick him. But now that I'm from different states down here, I don't even know what to go back and tell my elderly people in the village, because I was the one that brought him out from the village to the city. So, that is that.
Like Dorcas, A number of relatives are still looking for their loved ones. Rescue operations are still going on, but the hope of finding anyone alive beneath the rubble is now fading.
Some bodies are ready for identification, so people can go to Addis Ababa to identify the bodies of their loved ones. For bodies that may be very difficult to identify, we are going to be conducting a DNA test for them, for such bodies to be identified. And I would like to let you know that the operation continues.
As for O'Hare, she's still holding on to hope that her son David will be found alive. DG Bademasi, CGTN, Lagos.
Staying in Nigeria, children are being exposed to longer screen times, leading to a possible addictive disorder, according to research by the Nigerian Communications Commission. It says one of the major contributing factors is the global pandemic, which has increased virtual communication and activities. Experts are now calling for more controlled screen time exposure for children across the country. Our correspondent Phil Ihaza reports from Abuja.
Father of two, Emmanuel Yuhe, is setting up a video game session for his children.
They have a lot of content on television or on screen that they need to have access to, otherwise they will be backward. So as a result of that, sometimes they even have to watch these things to do their home assignments and stuff like that. So as a result of that, they've been exposed, I would say, an average of 5-6 hours a day on screen.
A report by the Nigerian Communications Commission shows the levels of screen time on gadgets among children in Nigeria, especially in urban areas. It says compared to an average global time allowed for children of 1 hour daily, Nigerian children now spend between 3 to 10 hours per day either watching television, playing video games, surfing the internet, or learning online. The report observed that COVID-19 restrictions have also led to an increase in the number of children learning daily with the aid of gadgets and the internet. It's up to 57% in urban areas and 46% in rural areas.
As they keep watching, one of the greatest risks is immorality. Some of them, as they watch, they tend to become crafty. They tend to be smart negatively. And the danger of what? Addiction. Being idle, stationed in one place. You go to some school, apart from even the homes. That's what some schools used to deceive parents. The basis of learning are not just there. They stay glued to cartoons all through, not minding which one is what is valuable to the children and the society or not, and which is wrong.
But some parents say the benefits outweigh the risks if proper regulation of the screen time is ensured.
In an age like this, it's impossible to make your child get to a level where he can compete with his mates without screen time. If you tell a child, if you do right, you have 30 minutes of screen time maybe to play a video game, believe me, the child will do beyond well. Sometimes books are expensive to buy. You get these things on screen. If you can control and they are looking at the right material, believe me, they will become better people than their peers.
The government says it's working towards educating parents across the country on how to control screen time exposure for their children, as well as engaging them in other activities beyond screens.
The Nigerian Communications Commission has launched a Nigerian Child Online Protection Policy and an awareness project which is aimed at sensitizing parents and children on the safe use of the internet and other virtual contents.
The government knows screen time isn't going away, but it wants to ensure a healthy balance for families like the Yuhes. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced plans to work with other African countries to raise resources for investment in the continent's climate change mitigation programs. The plan is expected to create opportunities for the private sector to invest in the restoration of Africa's carbon sinks, including forests. CGTN's Daniel Arapmoy reports.
Africa's savanna, mangroves, coral reefs and marine reserves are the main carbon sinks of the world. But this ecosystem that Africa provides to the world has been degraded by local communities who have few economic alternatives. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta says Africa needs to develop new clean energy technologies that meet the energy demand without emitting greenhouse gases.
We appreciate that low-carbon energy technologies offer more sustainable ways to meet energy demand to fuel economies while simultaneously reducing greenhouse gases. However, access to and deployment of these technologies remains a persistent barrier.
Kenya has now pledged to work with other African countries to mobilize financial resources to help combat climate change.
We in Kenya reaffirm our commitment and resolve to work with others to accelerate climate solutions, keep to 1.5 degrees, and to ensure solutions are accessible and indeed affordable for all.
But redressing the imbalance between those responsible for causing the climate crisis and those bearing its greatest consequences is crucial.
Environmentalists in Africa are concerned that very little investment goes towards nature-based solutions where the greatest emission reduction opportunities for the African continent exist. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Now let's recap your top story. Thousands of Ethiopians gathered in the capital Addis Ababa on Sunday in support of the government. Here's CGTN's Girum Chala with more.
Residents of Ethiopia's capital came in their hundreds of thousands in support of the federal government, denouncing the TPLF and those they say are foes of the Eastern African nation. Mayor of Addis Ababa, Adanich Habebe, said the people of Ethiopia will not accept those who wanted war against the country.
After sacrifice paid, those people of ours have left us the freedom you're enjoying today. We can never have a drop of patience to tolerate those who attempt to take that freedom away from us. The TPLF junta, the terrorist group, has waged war on us at the time when we started a new era, forgetting the atrocities and crimes it has committed over the last 27 years. They will never succeed.
Addressing the formation of a new coalition of parties that promised to topple the government by force, the mayor said Ethiopia and Ethiopians will not accept a puppet leadership.
They were electing their leaders democratically, but they tell us we have to get their approval for us to form a government. They are even showing us their wish of putting on us a puppet government. That will never succeed and will never happen here.
The mood at Muscat Square can be described as one that is filled with patriotism and courage, hope and determination by the people gathered. Meanwhile, war has continued on the north, and we have heard of serious battles in and around the cities of Dessa and Kombolcha, which were recently fell to the hands of the rebel force. Attempts for peace talks to begin also remain ongoing. Grumjara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Sports news now, and it was a good day